So I'm going to say two things that seem like almost contradictory. I think this is the new best episode of the season, but it's still not quite there. Says a lot about where we are right now, isn't it? Strange New Worlds, episodes 6? 6. Yes, 6. Oh, this one was so close, man. Right on the rim of doing what this show has been afraid to do this season. It seems to actually be allergic to doing this season, which is saying something. I'm not going to say that this doesn't say something. It does, but it opts to imply what it is saying, which I might not normally object to. I actually sometimes might even appreciate it, giving the space for audiences to make the connections themselves. The problem is this is Star Trek. Star Trek's supposed to say things, and when the rest of the season has said nothing, the one time that you appear to actually be trying to say something that you still don't fully commit to saying it, still kind of disappointing. I know I'm kind of talking around it because it is very spoilery, and I'm actually getting close to catching up, so I don't want to automatically assume that everyone watching has seen it. But I will say that for the most part, this is a kind of, action-heavy tension episode. Again, a bit like the premiere, and it's fine for that. It handles that decently and pretty well. And when it gets to its point on the back end, I did like its point. I just think it would have helped if the point had been made earlier so they could have actually dug into the thing, as opposed to it's just kind of there, acknowledged, and then moved on from. Well, let's get into specifics a little bit, which means that eventually I'll be getting to spoilers, but there's my broad thoughts. So this is, as I said, an action and tension episode. We have a gigantic, threatening ship that looks like a giant monster, and it comes in, it damages the Farragut that Kirk is on, and then you have the Enterprise coming in and trying to help, but getting captured, and so we have this skeleton crew on the Farragut trying to figure out how to rescue the Enterprise from something that they don't know how to deal with. And then, of course, you are cutting between the Farragut and the Enterprise as the separated and splintered crews try and figure out how to handle all this. So it is well structured. It's well structured and well paced up until the point I already mentioned, which is the fact that they don't give the reveal. It's not, I don't want to go so far as to say the reveal is rushed, but for how much I would have liked them to dig into the reveal, it should have come sooner. And again, I'll circle back to what I was going to say when I get to what the reveal was. So we have basically a soft pilot, stealth pilot for the thing that Akiva Goldsman has said he wants to do, which is basically Star Trek Original Series Year 1, because there is a little bit of canonical time between when Kirk takes over the Enterprise and when the original series as a show actually starts. There's like a year or so of in-universe time, and he wants to make a show in that space. And they're kind of soft pitching it because they have the members of the crew on the Farragut all be the people who are going to be the rollover characters who would appear in the original series. So Spock, Uhura, Scotty, Chapel, and Kirk, because the captain of the Farragut was injured, is the ranking officer, so he is the acting captain. They basically gave us as much of that original series crew as is currently on this show on a ship. And they're like, hey, ain't this a fun dynamic? Don't you want to see them all together? It's not that they didn't work. It wasn't totally ham-fisted, but it's also I see you. I see what you're doing. You're not as sneaky about it as you think you are. But that, the cynicism of that set aside, they do work pretty well. And actually, I think this is the best Kirk has been. They do a really good job of bringing to light, that sort of Kirk is often, especially in light of future captains like Picard, especially Kirk is often seen as kind of the wild cowboy, the doesn't follow orders, and like he is a little bit, but I feel like time has exaggerated that in a lot of fans' minds. But this does a really good job of illustrating that impulsive sense of not quite recklessness, but like this assumption that like it'll work. Like yeah, this will work. Let's just do it. It'll work. That he tends to have, and sort of contrasting that with this basically being the first time he's actually in charge, and showing how when he's not the backseat driver, where it's honestly easier to critique because you don't have to face the consequences of the final decision, to actually now the buck stops with you, and whatever decision is made, whether it was originally your idea or not, because you're the one signing off on it, you are responsible for the consequences, to see how that hits him. That's actually really well done. And I really like the scene between him and Spock, where Spock's trying to be like, yeah, it's all very real now. And also the wrap-up scene with Kirk and Pike later on, where Pike is empathizing with like, yeah, that shift from first officer, and you're like, I could do that job, to then actually having to do that job is like getting hit in the face with a brick. That's all really good stuff. I think they handled Kirk especially well this episode. As far as what went on the Enterprise, it is a bit more time fillery. That said, I kind of love the idea that, God, what's her name? Pilia, Carol Kane. She's just Carol Kane to me. I'm sorry. Carol Kane's character just having these boxes of nonsense from the different times she has been alive because she's so damn old. She's just got all these rotary phones, all these corded landline phones that they're just like, oh, I guess we can wire this up so that the fact that our signals are jammed isn't a problem anymore. And like they've established her character well enough that what could have felt like a Deus Ex Machina, like why would she just have that laying around? Instead, it's like, oh yeah, no, I totally buy you that she would do that. Yeah, absolutely. And I figured there was going to be some reveal, some twist, because they were hiding what these things were that were on the ship that was doing all this. And like, there's all this talk about what it is. It's huge, it's monstrous, it's a scavenger ship. The more that it takes, the bigger that it gets. The bigger that it gets, the more that it needs, which means the more it has to take. And it's a never-ending cycle of endless expansion and endless consumption. With the eventual reveal being that these are not an alien species, these are humans. Not only are these humans, the first clear indicator we see is the American flag. And the details line up really, really well, because what we find out is that this originated, like we're at the point that this story happens, we're dealing with, multiple generation descendant. But what originally happened was these people who, like, either in the middle of or right on the cusp of the Third World War, or maybe even in the immediate aftermath. I forget if they established very much when, but like when things seemed hopeless and like the planet seemed unrecoverable, a group of the best and brightest were sent out into space from the US. They never say, like, they show us the flag on the thing, but they never say the United States. But they were sent out of the recovered scraps of the space program to go out and try and continue the human race out there. And they became this. What I really like about this is what all of that implies is that, because not only like just the idea of humans bad. I mean, yes, humans bad. We suck. But like what this is doing in terms of the implied story is that because of when they come from, because they came from the point before everything turned around, before the utopia, before the post-capitalist world, even the best and brightest at the time, which they don't really justify, they just kind of say it, but even the best and brightest at the time were still mired in that era of thought. Even the best and brightest of that time still were marinating in a culture that said competition, domination, expansion. These are good and innate to our being. And what is the sci-fi far-flung extrapolation of that? You consume, you scavenge, you get bigger, you do it again. And I also really like the points with in the conversation again between Kirk and Pike, where Pike's like, "Look, you made the call you needed to call," and Kirk's kind of hung up on the fact of how many people just died, and it was way more than how many were saved. And Pike's like, "Well, it's that lesson where you realize that the other side is also people," and Kirk's like, "That's the thing, I didn't think they were." And not only are they people, they are human beings. They're not that far from us. They in theory are the same thing. And the way that hits him is really nice. Here's the problem though, and here's the thing that I mentioned before. All that stuff I just said about the specificity of where in the timeline they come from and the fact that they would have been mired in that capitalistic competition, zero sum, like if I have something, it is because I took it from you. And therefore, I also give nothing because there's no sense of altruism. And it's all just you take, you survive, you expand, you grow. And the fact that it was mired in that mentality and that ultimately resulted in this, that is never stated. That is all implied. And as I said at the start, under other circumstances, I might even praise the subtlety of that. I might even go, you know what? I kind of like that they left it to implication. And in a vacuum, I do kind of like it. But within the context of a season of Star Trek, of all things, that seems terrified to be saying anything or making a point, it's really frustrating that they didn't actually say more and left it to implication. Like, what was the best episode of season 2? It was Ad Astra, and that was the best one by a lot, and it was one that was not afraid to say outright what it was doing. And this could have been that episode, but because of how late in the story that the reveal happens, there isn't the time to let it be about that. It still had to be, at least by runtime, mostly about action and tension and, ooh, will they survive? So, again, in a vacuum, not bad, good, maybe even great, but context matters. And especially as we are living in a time where an increasing volume of people are just succumbing to their worst instincts, and especially within fandoms, people are claiming that things like Star Trek and Star Wars and Doctor Who aren't actually about political ideas when they always have been. This is the time to be really clear about what those political ideas and ideals are. If there was a time to be subtle, it's not right now. And again, if there were other episodes of this season that were willing to be as upfront with actually making a point, then this might land better. Instead, it feels like a glimpse of what should have been the standard for the season, and then maybe there were other ones that went even harder on the ideas. Instead, this is the outlier. This is the hardest they've gone in on these ideas, and a lot of its implication, and that's frustrating. And look, you can talk to me all day long about how it's cheesy and on the nose to just come out and say this. Yes, Star Trek is frequently cheesy and on the nose because it is trying to make a point. So much of the best episodes of this entire franchise, including some of the movies, have been very straightforward, very upfront, and have really dug in on what its points and its political positions were. That is not, a stranger to this franchise. It's actually pretty good at doing that when it has the balls to do it. Again, just in terms of recent history, I'll point to Ad Astra, but you can go through basically any franchise that has been part of Star Trek. I mean, easy ones to pull. Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Could you be more blatantly environmental about all this? The Measure of a Man, way back with Next Generation. Like, these kinds of things are beloved and pointed to, and like, yeah, they were really cooking there. They could have been really cooking with this. They did light the burner, but it's simmering. This is a simmer. I would have loved to boil. But yeah. Again, in a vacuum, a really good episode, to be honest. But it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in a context. Both a cultural context, a context of its season, and a context of its overall franchise. And within all three of those greater contexts, it comes up a little bit short. Ah, well. Anyways, Strange New Worlds, episode 6. What did you think about this one? I have a strong suspicion. I'm going to get some responses that say I am being overly critical and impossible to please about this. I would not be shocked if I get that. But whatever your thoughts might be, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe. Those also help as well. Don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. What was any of that? And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Fulla, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Tracy Scrabbit, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Don't worry, the rats are all fine, but my rat wrangler is not here right now, and I thought we could have Archie say hi. Or not.